This weekend I was making some zucchini bread and I had my Christmas tree plugged in, and the warm glow of the lights and the smell of the warm bread baking and the cinnamon made for such a nice ambiance. I thought, I'm going to put on a Christmas movie, and what better classic than A Christmas Story? Little Ralphie in his pink bunny pajamas. There's a lot of humor in that movie. And it got to the part where Ralphie had been being bullied continuously, and he finally snapped, and he talks about that fiery flame that lit within him, and he just exploded on his bully and started pummeling him. And in a gang stalking situation, let's call it what it is. It's extreme adult bullying. And as children, bullying is following someone home or on the school bus, picking on them, spreading rumors about them, physically being bullying and abusive to them, knocking over their lunch, knocking their books out of their hands, all those childish behaviors. And unfortunately, gang stalking is the adult version of that type of bullying. And I often wonder what would make a grown adult choose to be abusive to another person like a child would bully another child. And, children that bully generally do so because they've observed bullying behavior, because they're experiencing or witnessing abuse in the household. And it's a need for them to assert some sense of power because they don't have power at home. But what makes an adult choose to be a gang stalker or a bully? Is it ego? Is it a need for power and control? Is it discrimination? Is it simply hate? Because they are hate crimes generally. It just makes you wonder, what makes someone decide, yes, I want to be part of a hate train. Yes, I want to be a participant and a listener in a smear campaign. I want to circulate rumors about someone and destroy their life. I want to, intimidate them and verbally abuse them and cause harm to them and damage to their career and their reputation and possibly their mental health, their physical surroundings. I want to hurt someone else. What makes an adult decide, in their busy day, to take time out from their job and raising their family and whatever other responsibilities they have, to set aside time to persecute and bully another individual? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, because I've pondered that often. If someone came to me and was speaking slanderously about someone, spreading rumors and gossip, I would immediately be turned off to that person. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with them, because they've just proved my name will never be safe with you because you're capable of speaking about other people in such a horrible way. Or if somebody, and asked me even for a large sum of money to be part of a gang stalking campaign, a hate campaign, there's no dollar amount you could give me to want to do harm to another person. So it just has made me reflect on what causes a person to be willing to do that. So I'm going to talk today about the types of bullies, because that's what gang stalkers are. They're bullies. When we mask it as gang stalkers, we're literally giving them a mask, a faceless, nameless, titleless role as a collective group of bullies. But if we break it down by type of bully, we can really start to see who and what kind of person would participate in this type of hate crime. And the first is formal power, those that use their positions to abuse their power. Maybe it's a boss at a job, or law enforcement, or somebody in the court system, or somebody, in a position of government or power, or even a religious leader. It's someone who has a position where they've been trusted with a certain level of power, yet they're using that position for nefarious purposes, to do harm to other people. And having that power to be able to make a phone call or get influence from other people or get followers, and using it in a way that is so detrimental to others. Discriminatory bullies. This is when you see bullying or gang stalking one race a group of people against a different race, or a group of men targeting a woman that speaks up and has a voice, as in my case. It's ageism. We don't like your religion. It's choosing to dislike someone as a group collectively and then targeting them and abusing them because of who they are, what they believe, what they look like, who their identity is. Religious persecution. Unfortunately, many of our stories involve persecution, gangstalking, bullying, crimes at the hands of those going to church. The religious group of people that feel that they're more worthy, they're more righteous, therefore it's acceptable to mistreat, to judge, to abuse others in the name of Jesus, in the name of Christianity, or whatever their faith is, justifying that we're a superior group and they're lower, so it's okay to speak poorly about them, to mistreat them, to ostracize them, to damage their reputation, to damage their career, to intimidate them, to damage their property, violate their privacy rights, all the things that occur in these reverse religious persecution cases. And unfortunately, a large group of us that have been targeted are experiencing this at the hand of those who are being led by church leaders to engage in this kind of abuse and justifying it, that we're righteous, you're not living in alignment with us. You've sinned, therefore you're deserving of abuse. You've sinned, therefore you're worthy of being discussed and slandered and treated terribly. Cyberbullying, we see a lot of this with youth, unfortunately, and even adults. The keyboard warriors that have no shame behind a screen and are bold and abusive and ridicule and criticize, try to shame and humiliate their victim online, whether they're creating fake profiles of them, whether they're in group discussions or pages or blogs victimizing another person. It's a horrendous crime that is unfortunately a crime of our time. Bullying used to be more following someone home, from school or on the bus and picking on them. And now, thousands upon thousands of people can be participants in that bullying online, and it leaves a digital footprint in such a way that, great, it'll circle back to the perpetrators, but it also is lasting for the victim, that is online and captured for even strangers to participate and bully and target, that have no reason, that have no affiliation to the victim, but because of that mob mentality, that group think, these cyber crimes get so amped up and it becomes acceptable to send rude texts, to exploit somebody by circulating photos of them, false narratives and images of them. Just horrendous treatment using technology, whether it's hacking, recording someone and circulating it, just horrendous victimization at the hands of these cyber bullies. Verbal abuse, obviously this could come from a neighbor, a family member in the community. If a victim, a targeted individual, is just simply trying to run errands, go to the post office and the grocery store, and is dealing with verbal harassment, attacks verbally, or a family member that's very critical and shames them and does so not only directly, but that verbal abuse can be part of the smear campaign, spreading malicious lies, slander about the victim in all areas of their life, their job, their community, their church group, their family group, and so on. And sadly, physical abuse is a lot of our stories, and this can include not just physical bodily harm, but damage to our property, ripping out our garden, vandalizing our vehicles, breaking our windows, all kinds of intimidation acts to exert power and control with an effort to intimidate the victim, the bullying victim, the gangstalking victim. And there could be, more serious crimes. Some stories include poisonings or attempts on someone's life, a victim's life. it can go pretty far when that discrimination, that hate, that need for power and control, that ego, that pride gets the best of a gang stalker. It can really get dangerous for a victim. And the most cunning bullies of all are the passive aggressive bullies. And these are the ones that are able to hide how much of a bully they are because it's through the slander, through the smear campaign, eye rolls when the victim's mentioned, or little comments or jokes, gossip. They're very cunning because they'll be, presenting well to the community, even smiling in the face of the victim, but behind the scenes, there's all the little digs and comments, remarks about the victim, and they're being a bully in such a cunning way that it's masked and they go undetected oftentimes, yet they're often the greatest bullies in these situations because these passive-aggressive bullies that are igniting that smear campaign and that gossip are antagonizing all these other crimes, these targeting crimes, because what they're saying here is making these more aggressive bullies feel justified in their physical assaults, their verbal assaults, their damage of property, their hacking, their privacy violations, the installing of cameras, and all the other horrific things that these gang stalkers do. And it really comes down to, well, what do I do about this? People often ask me, what do I do about my targeting situation? And, every case is unique and different. And I wish there was a simple answer, go to the police or go call this 1-800 number. And there's not. And that's the problem. And that's why I make these videos. And I think many others that have similar platforms, is to bring awareness to the issue that this needs to be well known what's happening, what is really going on in these gang stalking cases, so it's broken down. Because once it's more knowledgeable and discussed and a topic that's at the forefront of conversation, that's what leads to change and solutions. And we can leave our job if we're being targeted there. We can move out of a neighborhood if we're being targeted by the neighborhood, or move out of a community if it's community members. We can leave our faith group if we have no choice because we're being targeted there. We can cut ourselves off from our family if we're being abused by family members. We can try to leave a romantic partner that is using finances to abuse us, or smear campaigns to abuse us, any efforts to exert dominance and control, because that's really what it comes down to, is abusers need to feel a sense of dominance, power, and control. But I think the best advice we've been given is from God himself in Matthew 5:44, where the scripture talks about loving our enemies, blessing those that curse us, praying for those that despitefully use us and persecute us. That as we obey, we will have God's presence. He will walk with us. He will help us. He will strengthen us. He will protect us because we're the ones being obedient. And I make it a point to pray for my enemies every day. And I didn't declare them to be my enemies. They chose that role for whatever strange reason they've decided. It's never justified to be someone's enemy. But I pray for them that they'll have the things that they stand in need of, that whatever is hurting within them can be healed, because it's hurt people that hurt people. And obviously they're in pain if they would go so far as to treat another human being, a son or daughter of God, in such a way that is disrespectful to God himself. But as we obey what God has said in his word about what to do in these situations, because bullying is timeless. It happened back in biblical times. The story of the Good Samaritan, that's a good example. Jesus was bullied himself. He was discriminated against. He had unfair trials and injustice and so many things that he experienced as a targeted individual. And he set the example for us of how to handle ourselves, how to respond, and we've been given direct word about how to respond to our enemies. Not like Ralphie that pummels, his targeters, his bullies, although that's what they want. They are, trying to ignite that reactive abuse and get a response from us. But as we choose not to respond, and as we choose to be obedient to God's command and how to handle ourselves in the situation, He will help us, He will bless us, He will see us through it.